What's going on, guys? Jackson here, host of the Court is in Session podcast here on the Vendetta Sports Media Podcasting Network, bringing you a kind of pseudo episode of the Court is in Session podcast. Haven't recorded in a while, been wanting to, just haven't been able to sit down and actually record an episode with people. But since we're on the eve of a brand new NBA season, I felt it only right to kind of do like this kind of, like I said, pseudo episode, solo-esque adventure of me giving you my predictions for the 2022-2023 NBA season. I wanted to just get these predictions out here so that way I had some stuff to reference in the future. You know, if I get something right, brag about it. Of course, obviously, that's what we do in the media. When we're right, we brag about things. If we're wrong, then we just ignore it. But as the season goes along, we'll pick the podcast back up. I've got some other things that I want to do NBA related wise as well with the season. So hopefully we'll get that all rolled out as the year progresses. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into my predictions for the 2022-2023 NBA season. I will start out with where I think teams are going to finish seeding wise for the playoffs, and then I will give you who I think will win the NBA championship, as well as the individual awards for MVP, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year. So we're going to start with my standings for the Western Conference. As the first seed, I have the defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors. I think they're going to be extremely motivated to try and run it back one last time, and I think this probably is going to be the last dance for the main core of this Warriors team. And by main core, I mean, of course, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green. And besides the whole drama aspect of Green and Poole, Wiggins got a massive extension, Poole got a massive extension. They are nearly $500 million into the tax. That's how high their bill is that their owner is going to have to pay. And I think the casualty of this cap, not necessarily a crisis, but just a casualty of the cap, a casualty of the tax to get it down, even if the cap was to increase, is going to be Draymond Green. I think they're going to be motivated. I think he's going to be motivated. They're going to try to win one more, and I think that's going to propel them to be the number one team in the Western Conference. Bit of a surprise here at number 2. I've got the Denver Nuggets finishing second in the West. I mean, what's more to say about Nikola Jokic? He's arguably the best center in the league. I do think that he's probably the best center in the league, and he's got two key pieces in Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. coming back into the fold. They both have looked fairly well in preseason. Again, I know it's preseason. Jamal Murray hasn't played a ton of these games, but it's going to be nice to have both of those guys back. I just think it's going to pay big dividends for them, and they are kind of my dark horse to win the championship this season. At third, we've got the Clippers. Listen, man, the Clippers on paper, they're supposed to win it or be in contention every single year, but now they seem to be finally healthy. They've added John Wall, who I'm really rooting for, man. I hope John Wall has a great season, and as long as they don't obviously interfere with my Grizzlies, then they can go as deep into the playoffs as they want to, and John Wall have a successful time as an LA Clipper. Then they have players like Norman Powell that will more than likely probably come off the bench. They got a pretty good squad together there with the Clippers. I think they're definitely the better LA team right now as everything stands, and I think third is probably a good spot. I don't think they drop any lower than maybe 5th, maybe 6th, depending on health, how healthy everybody is. But I still think they're going to be a dangerous team, both in the regular season and the playoffs. At number 4, I have the Memphis Grizzlies, and of course have to be as unbiased as I can in this. Lots of question marks going into the start of the season. When is Jaren Jackson Jr. going to be back? How big of an impact is the loss of Kyle Anderson and Anthony Melton going to have on this team? Is Desmond Bane going to be able to continue to grow as a player, which it looks like he is if you haven't been watching any Grizzlies preseason? If so, then what are you doing? Or why are you not watching preseason basketball? I don't get it. And of course, led by Ja Morant, this team has a very high ceiling. But if Jaren is able to come back fairly quickly and they can hang on, be competitive in those games that he's not there, then that could pay dividends down the line, and they get a pretty decent seeding and are set up nicely going into the playoffs. At 5, I've got the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns are interesting, man. I have no idea what to make of them. It seems like their entire organization is collapsing from the top down, and I could definitely see them imploding, even maybe falling further than 5th in the rankings to close the season. So I've got them at 5. They could potentially go lower. I think their championship window probably has closed, and I don't know what to think of them right now. At 6, I've got the New Orleans Pelicans. I think just they've made such amazing moves ever since moving off of Anthony Davis. Of course, Zion is looking extremely healthy. He's looking more healthy than he did in college, which is crazy to think about. Of course, you got an all-star in Brandon Ingram. You got CJ McCollum. They got a lot of small pieces here and there that can really contribute to winning. They're going to be a problem, and they could be kind of a dark horse team to shoot up the ladder and maybe even pull what Memphis did last season and steal a really high seed and make a run in the playoffs. At 7th, I've got the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not entirely sure what to do with them or where to put them. Like, obviously they have one of the best players in the world with Luka Doncic, but the rest of this team, man, it's so hit or miss with some of these players that I don't know what to do with them, honestly. Losing Jalen Brunson hurts a lot. They should have tried to pursue him as best as they could. They go out, they get Christian Wood instead. I don't know, man. The roster construction is so odd to me here. They are a wild card, essentially, on what they're going to do this season. And number 8, got the Minnesota Timberwolves. I go back and forth on these guys. I do not think that the Gobert trade was great for Minnesota, especially given what they had to give up to do that trade. You're paying a lot of money for an aging defender who can't really score down low, has been exposed and is nearly unplayable in the playoffs, and you're bringing him in to be a central part of your team. Obviously, this team is going to go as far as Anthony Edwards can carry them, and he has the potential to carry them a long, long way. He is a superstar in the making, and he is exciting, fun to watch, must-see TV. I will tune into Timberwolves games just to watch him. And then rounding out the seeding, 9 and 10 for the play-in spots, the final 2 play-in spots, I've got the Lakers and the Blazers. Now, they could honestly be interchangeable at the 9 and 10 seed. I think they'll probably end up closer to each other, a game or two apart. I have no faith in the Lakers. They have no depth. And of course, the Blazers, we just don't know what they're going to look like right now. Maybe the Blazers end up stealing one of those 7 or 8 spots. I have no idea. But the Lakers, I have absolutely no confidence in, and I think that they are bounced in whichever game is their first game in the play-in. I think they're gone, and then it's going to be an interesting offseason next season to hear Lakers fans complain about. Now for the Eastern Conference, which probably has some of my more controversial picks that I'm just like, yeah, I've picked this, but I don't know exactly how I feel about it. At the 1 seed, I'm going to go with the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers just seem to be a really good regular season team. I think Joel Embiid is going to have an amazing season. James Harden, everyone's hyping him up that he's like, oh, he's back to, pre-Nets James Harden, that, he's back. He's going to be able to do really well. I just don't really trust Doc Rivers with this team. I don't trust Doc Rivers with any team, really, unless it's that the one time that he won a championship with the Boston Celtics. But I don't know, man. They're always a good regular season team, and I think they continue that here. And I think they maybe even make a run at having the best record in all of the NBA. And number 2, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks, it all really depends on when Chris Middleton can come back. I think if he can come back fairly quickly. I think I saw a report today that said it could be a couple weeks before he's back, but if he can come back and he can contribute in the same way that he always has, this Bucks team is dangerous and should be one of the top 2 contenders to win the NBA championship. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics. Now, from a coaching standpoint, I don't know what's going to happen with this team. Brad Stevens doesn't seem to be as savvy when it comes to the front office side as he was as a coach or as his predecessor in the front office in Danny Ainge. But you can't deny that the talent is not there. They bring in Malcolm Brogdon, who I think will serve as an excellent backup point guard for them. And of course, as long as you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, you're going to be pretty good. At number 4, I'm going to rock with the Nets here. And again, it's all depending on if they're healthy or not. If they're not healthy, then they could fall down to the play-in. But if they are healthy, then who knows? Kevin Durant can carry a team. I think people forget just how good Kyrie is sometimes. He pretty much had almost an entire year off last year. And then, of course, there's the wild card in Ben Simmons. They don't need Ben Simmons to be too much. What I mean by that is they need him to play defense, which he is an excellent defender, handle the ball sometimes, and then maybe do a little bit of scoring down low around the post. They're not going to be asking him to shoot a bunch of threes, shoot a bunch of shots. Just cut, drive, facilitate, get the ball to your shooters on the wings, get the ball to Kevin Durant, try to do something where Kyrie gets the ball and some movement in the system, and who knows, maybe this team finds success. At number 5, I've got to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the most interesting teams in all of the Eastern Conference. Donovan Mitchell riding into town. This team is built very interestingly. They have 2 really good bigs in Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. And of course, I love Darius Garland. I really, really like Darius Garland. I think that dude is a hooper and can carve out a nice place for himself in the top tier of point guards in the NBA. And before they were riddled with injuries last season, JB Bickerstaff had this team playing really good basketball. At 6, I've got the Toronto Raptors. They're the Toronto Raptors, man. Nick Nurse always seems to find a way to take what seems to be lesser talent, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way to the players on the Raptors or any Toronto fans out there, but it's not flashy players, it's not the sexy players, but they're the grinders. They're going to get the job done, and they're going to win a lot of basketball games. The 7th seed, I've got the Chicago Bulls. Again, this really depends on how healthy they can be. They were riddled with injuries last season. I don't foresee DeMar DeRozan playing to the level like he was last year, when you had a lot of people saying that he should have been in the MVP conversation, that he should win MVP if he continues to play at this level, and when they were the number 1 seed. Like I said, they had a lot of injuries last season. They're still having a few players. Lonzo Ball still dealing with some nagging injuries going into this season, and DeMar cooled off at the end of last year, and who knows how he's going to be the start this season. At 8, I've got the Atlanta Hawks, and again, Atlanta is just another team I have no idea what to deal with. 2 years ago, they were supposed to be bad, but turned out to be fairly good. Last year, they were supposed to be good, and then they were not good. They weren't that great. And I know they added DeJounte Murray, but how far over the top does DeJounte Murray push this team? Does he push them from just like up a seed or 2 to get out of the play-in, or is he good for a series, 2 series? Can they get back to the Eastern Conference Finals? I've got the Knicks and the Magic here taking up these final 2 spots. This is so difficult because there's teams that I feel like could be here, but I don't know. Weird things happen every year in the NBA season, and I just don't know what's going to happen here at the bottom part of the Eastern Conference. The Knicks are the Knicks. They spent a ton of money. They have a ton of money wrapped up in Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and RJ Barrett. I like how everyone is calling them the mid-3. That's pretty funny, actually. Pretty funny. But then the Magic, I'm super high on the Magic. I think they've got a lot of great young players. There's a lot of young teams that resemble each other in the Eastern Conference right now, and I think the Magic are probably the ones that get in, but the Pistons are right there behind them as well. And I would be more than okay with being wrong with the Magic or the Knicks getting in if it meant that the Pistons get in, because I do really like what the Pistons are doing. In fact, the Pistons and the Magic are probably my 2, what I would label as my NBA League Pass teams. I'm going to make them co-league Pass teams, because if they are playing and there's not another game that I really want to watch, those are the games that I'm going to want to go watch, because I want to see this young core develop and play together for both the Magic and the Pistons. And I just think they could be a ton of fun this season. So the Pistons kind of get like an honorable mention as like the 11th seed. The Wizards, also, I don't know what to do with them really, but they could be on the outside looking in once again, and Bradley Beal is going to continue to just ride at the bottom of the NBA. Now for my NBA championship, and this all depends on if this team can stay healthy. I think the Milwaukee Bucks could potentially win the NBA championship, and Giannis cements himself as one of the greatest players of all time with a second NBA title. I like their matchups in the Eastern Conference and against teams in the Western Conference. I even like them going up against Golden State. I think they have the defense and the offense to overcome what Golden State has to offer. And besides, there's no one on Golden State that is probably going to stop. And besides, there's really no one on Golden State that's going to be able to stop Giannis. If there is anyone, it would probably be James Wiseman, and that is a tall ask for a young player who really doesn't have a whole lot of NBA experience because he's been dealing with so many injuries. Great player, just not that experienced. And again, like I said, I'm high on the regular season and in these regular season awards for the 76ers, but regular season success doesn't always equal postseason success. Just ask the Bucks from a few years ago before they won their first championship. Lots of regular season success, MVPs, coach of the years, and they never won the title. For Rookie of the Year, I have to give it to Paolo Banchero. Like I said, I'm really high on what the Magic are doing right now, and I think he's going to be a key part in what elevates them to potentially being a playoff team, at least a play-in team. And in a tournament where it's 1 or 2 games gets you into the playoffs, they could get hot for that 1 or 2 games, have a lot of momentum going into the playoffs. Not saying that they would win, because we are yet to have a play-in team actually win a NBA series, a playoff series. But again, they're such a fun and interesting team to watch. And again, Banchero, I think, is going to be a really good NBA player. For Sixth Man of the Year, I'm playing it safe and going with Jordan Poole. Now, there are a couple options here, like Tyler Heroes won it before in the past. Norman Powell with the Clippers is there also, but just something tells me that because of who he's playing for and the reputation that he's starting to build in the NBA, that if Jordan Poole does come off the bench, then he will get the Sixth Man of the Year. For Coach of the Year, and Coach of the Year is always weird. It's hard to gauge the narrative. Sometimes it feels like they give it to who should have been Coach of the Year last year, and then other years it's like they just give it to someone that's actually deserving of it, someone that has a team with little to no expectations, and then they do great, they do fantastically. And sometimes it just feels like they give it to whatever coach has the most regular season wins. And because I think they'll have the best record in the NBA this season, I'm going to hand it off to Doc Rivers. Again, this is a regular season award, and you know what? I'm perfectly and honestly fine with getting this prediction wrong. I'm just, for whatever reason, I have this gut feeling that the 76ers are going to have a great regular season, win a bunch of awards, have a couple of all-stars, but not win the title. Now, for the Defensive Player of the Year, this is always a difficult award to guess because it feels like it's just become so subjective over the past few years. Like, is it a big award, like as in like a big, like a center? Is it just their award because they seem to be, that people that play that position seems to be the primary winners of the award? But then you had like Marcus Smart last year, who's a guard, and he won the award. And honestly, if you ask me, I'm not entirely sure that Marcus Smart is the best defensive player on his team, let alone the entire NBA, as that award kind of slaps that label on you. But he's gotten some votes for it before. I'm going to show some love to South Beach, and I think Bam Adebayo has a really great season just in general, but defensively, he could take that next leap up. I'd love for my guy Jaren to get some love, and he did get some love. He did get some votes last season, but I don't know if he's going to be healthy long enough to get that award. I would love to be wrong and him do it, but I'm a rock with Bam for this one. And now we finally get to the MVP. And let me say a few things before I get to my prediction, although you could probably guess what my prediction is at this point in time. Jokic is probably going to have a great season. His numbers may even be close to what they were in his previous two MVP seasons. His numbers are probably going to be fairly close, if not the same, than his previous two MVP seasons. But he will not win the MVP this season solely based on the fact that he has done nothing. He's won no championships in his previous 2 years. I am not saying that I agree with that, but when I'm making these predictions, I have to look at the history of how the voters have gone in the past. They did the same thing with Giannis. Giannis won a couple of MVPs, but he didn't win a ring. So then they started handing it off to Jokic. I think Giannis is going to have a really, really good shot at it this season. And then, of course, I think a third member that's going to be in contention, and he always will be, is Luka Doncic. The moment that the Mavericks get a top 3, top 2 seed in the Western Conference, led by Luka Doncic doing the things that he does, the MVP is 100% his. But my official prediction, I think Joel Embiid is going to win it this season. When you take in all the other factors, I think his biggest rival, his biggest threat to winning this year is going to be Giannis. But if how I'm feeling the NBA season is going to go, and the Sixers do have a really good regular season and they are at the top of the Eastern Conference, then it is going to be his to lose. He will have to get injured again and not play a significant portion of time, which they wouldn't be at the top of the NBA anyways if that were to happen. But if he stays healthy, and if the Sixers are at the top of the NBA, then considering everything in the past, how many people feel like he's been robbed, maybe some of the voters feel like he's due now, because you had a lot of voters that were Jokic supporters in his first MVP that really turned against Jokic in his second season. Just everything's kind of fallen into place for Embiid to win MVP this season. Not necessarily because he had the best season, and I feel like he's going to have a fantastic season, but simply because of voter fatigue for Jokic, maybe even for Giannis, unless he's just really blowing everyone away. And I just think the team success for the Mavs, unless Luka is averaging like 35, 37 points a game, he's putting up the numbers that he does in every 2K simulation, then it's going to be Joel Embiid. All right, so that is my official prediction list for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Do you agree or disagree with some of the takes that I have? Let me know down in the comment section below. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this solo episode of the Court is in Session podcast. Make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter. I'll put it up here, link down in the description also. Plan to be extremely active as the NBA season goes on. So again, give the podcast a follow there so we can interact with each other. And as well, I will post new updates with the podcast as the season goes on. And if you enjoyed today's video, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you can be notified by YouTube whenever a new episode of the Court is in Session podcast or any other video from Vendetta drops. You will be one of the first to know. This is Jackson Law, host of the Court is in Session podcast, part of the Vendetta Sports Media Podcasting Network, signing off, and I will see you guys next time.